Nancy Guthrie, the 84-year-old mother of Today's Show host Savannah Guthrie, disappeared from her home near Tucson over the weekend, and within days, investigators were dealing not only with the signs of forced entry and blood inside the house, but also with alleged ransom notes demanding millions of dollars in Bitcoin, which immediately pushed this into a very different category of case. So here's what we know so far. Nancy had dinner with her family Saturday night and was dropped off at her home around 9:30. And by Sunday morning, when she failed to show up for church, something friends say she never missed without explanation, relatives knew that something was wrong and they went to check on her. And she was gone. Her phone was still inside the house, and investigators found signs of a forced entry. Oh, and they found blood. That alone ruled out the idea that she had simply wandered off somewhere. Then came the one detail that quietly reshaped how authorities began thinking about this entire timeline: her pacemaker. Police say Nancy's pacemaker last transmitted data to her iPhone at around 2 o'clock Sunday morning. And because these devices only communicate when they are physically near each other, that strongly suggests that she was still inside her home with her phone at that moment. After that, however, the signal stopped, which likely means whatever happened to her happened sometime after 2 a.m. while most of the neighborhood was sound asleep. Welcome to Why It's Trending Daily. I'm Hank. This is where I break down the stories everyone's suddenly Googling, and I explain to you why they matter. So within days of her disappearance, multiple media outlets reported receiving alleged ransom notes demanding payment in Bitcoin in exchange for Nancy's return. And according to those outlets, the notes referenced details from inside her home that were not publicly known, suggesting the writer may have been inside the house. Now, law enforcement has not confirmed the authenticity of the notes, but they have also been very careful not to dismiss them, repeatedly saying that every message is being treated as evidence and forwarded to detectives and the FBI, which tells you they see at least some potential relevance there. Now, if police believe those were obvious hoaxes, they would have said so, but at this point they haven't. At the same time, the sheriff's department has urged the public not to spread rumors or speculate about suspects, which usually happens when investigators believe someone is responsible but are still methodically building a case. Now, when you step back and look at the timeline, it becomes increasingly unsettling. Saturday night, she goes home. Around 2 a.m., her pacemaker sends its last signal. Sunday morning, she misses church. Sunday afternoon, police are called. Her phone is still inside her house the entire time. There is blood present at the scene, and she's gone. That sequence strongly suggests she was taken overnight, which raises uncomfortable questions about whether someone knew her routine, knew she lived alone, and knew when she would be at her most vulnerable. Because random burglaries almost never turn into targeted abductions with ransom demands. That kind of escalation usually involves awareness and intent. Another layer that makes this case more urgent in terms of Nancy's health. You see, authorities say she takes a daily medication, and without being on it for too long, she could be in a life-threatening situation, which means this is not just a criminal investigation unfolding slowly over months, but a medical emergency where delays carry real-time consequences. And that urgency is shaping how aggressively investigators are currently working at this. The pacemaker data, the phone records, the neighborhood cameras, license plate readers, cell phone tower pings, financial activity, and now blockchain analysis related to the ransom demands are all being used to reconstruct who was near her home, who lingered, who behaved unusually, and who suddenly changed patterns after she vanished. That work is happening constantly, as in right now, all the time. DNA is being collected. The scene has been processed. Federal agencies are very much involved, yet no suspect has been publicly named, which usually means either authorities are still assembling enough evidence to move safely, or they already have people of interest in mind and are quietly testing their stories against hard data. Savannah Guthrie's involvement has also changed the dynamics of this case. She rushed to Tucson. NBC pulled her from Olympic coverage. Her colleagues have made repeated public appeals. The president has personally contacted her himself. So this is no longer a local investigation. It's a national case with enormous visibility, which brings more resources, but also more noise, more false tips, more scammers, and more people trying to insert themselves into the story. That makes disciplined investigation even more important here. Now let's talk about the ransom demand itself, because this is where things stop making sense. You see, the alleged notes demand Bitcoin, even though Bitcoin transactions are permanently recorded on a public blockchain and can be traced over time, which makes it a strange choice for anyone who actually expects to get away with kidnapping and extortion. Experienced criminals avoid traceable systems. So either the person behind this is misinformed, reckless, desperate, or just not planning to collect the money at all. On top of that, real kidnappers almost never send ransom demands to multiple media outlets because publicity invites law enforcement pressure and increases the risks of mistakes. Again, this does not look like a carefully managed operation here. It looks improvised, it looks reactive, and frankly, it looks like something that just kind of spiraled. Authorities have also been clear that they do not believe Nancy wandered away. She had limited mobility. She was mentally sharp. She could not travel particularly far, however, without assistance. So this was not confusion. This was something that happened inside the home. And whoever was involved did not exactly cover their tracks well, which points again toward panic rather than planning. So here's the uncomfortable reality about cases like this. The first few days matter more than anything else because evidence is freshest, digital trails are clearest, and suspects are most likely to make mistakes. Investigators know this. They are mapping her contacts or visitors or recent interaction, her movements, building a detailed web of relationships and timelines. And in almost every major case, someone inside that web eventually stands out. Alibis crack. Stories will shift, behaviors change. And if that has not happened publicly yet, it means it's either happening quietly or the person responsible sits outside her immediate circle. Neither option is particularly reassuring, so here's my verdict. This was not random. This was not accidental. This was definitely not someone wandering off. What we're seeing is a targeted incident that escalated, and whoever did it is now under intense pressure as national attention and federal resources close in. And here's why this should matter to you. Because this case shows how modern investigations now depend on digital footprints and medical devices and financial systems and surveillance networks that quietly record everyday life all the time, making crimes harder to hide, but only if authorities act fast enough to connect the dots. If Nancy Guthrie is going to be found alive, it will be because this narrow window is used decisively, because data is followed relentlessly, and because investigators stay focused instead of getting pulled into speculation. Not because of internet theories, not because of viral posts, but because of disciplined police work. Amen. And the next few days are going to tell us exactly where this case is headed. I'm Hank, here to explain the chaos, not hype it. If you want clarity instead of noise, you're in the right place.